In April 2020, Tesla's Fremont plant was forced to shut its doors for a few weeks due to the ongoing COVID pandemic. In response, Elon tweeted, "The expansion of shelter in place, or as we call it, forcibly imprisoning people in their homes, is, in my opinion, breaking people's freedoms in ways that are horrible and wrong. What the f***? This is not freedom. Give people back their goddamn freedom." Exactly 2 years later, in April 2022, lockdowns in China forced the companies to shutter their factories yet again. This time in Shanghai, though, a factory which employs 50% more people than the one in California. Elon's response? Now, this is just one example, but it does illustrate the difficult position that Musk finds himself in. As the owner of Tesla, Musk can't afford to annoy the Chinese government. Not only because half their cars are made within the country, but also because sales to China represent about a quarter of the company's revenue. Admittedly, that's not all that unusual. Lots of big American companies manufacture a lot of their products in China and sell a lot to Chinese consumers. However, unlike companies like Apple, whose problems we've discussed in a separate video linked in the description, Musk has a unique problem of his own. That's because, as you surely know by now, this autumn Musk finalized his purchase of Twitter. Now, Musk says that his vision for Twitter is all about free speech. But will he continue to stay quiet about his China problem? Before we get into Twitter and the potential conflicts of interest, it's worth hammering home quite how reliant Tesla, and by extension Musk, are on China. That's because it's hard to overstate how important this relationship is, because not only does China represent Tesla's biggest manufacturing location and one of their largest sales markets, but the relationship between China and Tesla is especially strong. According to reporting from the New York Times, in order to get Tesla into China, the Chinese government provided Musk with literally billions of dollars worth of cheap land, loans, tax breaks, and subsidies. And this massive Chinese investment led Tesla to become the first foreign automaker to build a wholly owned production facility in China, a plant which Musk has described as a major part of the company's future. But this relationship isn't totally equal. It might sound like Tesla's getting a great deal here, but as with all companies operating out of China, they do so at the pleasure of Chinese authorities. Authorities who have used their weight to push around even the world's richest company. Now, when it comes to production of cars, this isn't all that scary, but when we consider Musk's recent purchase of Twitter, things do get a little more troubling. Now, as you either know or expected, Twitter is banned in China, as are basically all Western social media platforms. But that doesn't mean that the country is uninterested in Twitter. There's broadly 3 reasons why China is interested in the product: censorship, dissidents, and propaganda. Firstly, censorship. In China, censorship is a serious business, with Chinese social networks coming to swift and serious rulings on the issue. As such, there are all kinds of topics that the Chinese government won't allow citizens to openly discuss. In fact, they'd rather no one discuss them. So it's likely that China would love to assert their influence globally to get the discussion of these topics limited around the world too. Secondly, dissidents. While Twitter might officially be banned in China, many people are able to get around these restrictions. And to them, Twitter has become an invaluable tool to speak out against China, with many remarking about the incredible freedom the platform has offered them. However, over the last few years, we've seen China's arms of repression extend beyond their own borders, using online harassment and mobbing techniques to shut down and expose these Chinese dissidents. And as a result, Twitter and the internet as a whole isn't as safe for Chinese people as it once was. In fact, a Twitter employee was even charged with doing exactly the same thing for Saudi Arabia in 2019, when it was found that he helped to spy on and expose Saudi dissidents who used the platform to speak out. Perhaps the most important and the most active issue, though, is propaganda. That's because while China might like to use their influence globally to censor discourse and shut down dissidents, thus far their attempts have been pretty limited. The same can't be said of propaganda, though. That's because while the Chinese state can't stop people in the West from talking about issues which make them look bad, they certainly can spread their own alternative narrative. In fact, while Chinese citizens aren't allowed on Twitter, there's a surprising number of influential figures helped by an army of bots who regularly come out to bat for the Chinese government. For example, we saw this when Chinese propaganda outlets flooded Twitter and other sites with misleading videos of protester violence in Hong Kong, while ignoring rampant police brutality. We also saw it during COVID, when Chinese officials used Twitter to spread conspiracies, or when a network of bots propagated suspiciously similarly scripted videos downplaying human rights abuses in Xinjiang. In fact, if you want to learn more about that, the New York Times have a superb interactive article, which we've linked in the description, which runs through the extent of Chinese propaganda around this issue on Twitter. So, while Twitter isn't even active in China, the country certainly has a real interest in the platform. And that's why some are worried about Musk's stewardship of the company. As the owner of a now private Twitter, Musk has almost complete control over what happens on the site. A site which is no longer mediated by the demands of the market, a serious board, or shareholders. If one person should have that much control over what even he describes as a crucial town square of debate, is up for you to decide. But some are worried about his relationship in particular with China. In fact, chair of the US Senate Intelligence Committee, Mark Warner, has already raised concerns about Musk's control in this regard, remarking, "I don't think there's another American more dependent on the largesse of the Communist Party than Elon Musk." Going on to say, "To me, that's much more troubling than whether Donald Trump is on Twitter." He's not the only one either. Soon after Musk's acquisition, fellow billionaire and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos tweeted, "Interesting question. Did the Chinese government just gain a bit of leverage over the town square?" And it seems that China thinks they did. Chinese officials are already requesting that Musk makes changes, including removing warning labels that are placed on Chinese state accounts. And that's definitely not where the requests are going to end either. And considering Musk's silence on Chinese lockdowns, his remarks about Taiwan, and Tesla opening a controversial store in Xinjiang, it's understandable to see why they might think that Musk is not only a man they have leverage over, but someone who might already be on their side. Now, Elon is taking steps to mitigate against this Chinese leverage, either intentionally or not. Tesla is currently diversifying its production, with major new sites opening in Texas and Germany. But even these aren't likely to reduce the influence of China substantially. Moving production entirely away from China would take a lot of time. And with Tesla only hoping to increase total production, these new sites are intended to increase their output, not to take any attention away from China. And that leaves Musk in a difficult spot. His personal value is shrinking right now, as is the value of Tesla. So he's not in the best position to be making enemies, especially with one of the world's most powerful governments, and a government who he's benefited from cozy relations with in the past. Does this mean that free speech on Twitter is at risk and that China is in control? Well, that's unlikely, but it's hard to tell. Ultimately, though, this will be a major test not only for Musk's business credentials, but also for his ethical code. If you enjoyed this video and the content we've released here throughout the year, then be sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for more in 2023.